The shocking truth that shatters every assumption about power is this: the greatest dynasties don't need thrones, they just need mothers. The keen understanding of politics, the uncanny insight into nature, the quiet resilience that baffled their neighbors, it all survived, hidden in the culture of a people who had no idea they carried royal blood. They believed they were common. They were told they were common. But the ghost of their erased matriarch still walked in their gate and spoke in their quiet wisdom. This is the ultimate conspiracy, the one that truly chills you to the bone. But you are here, in the fens, where stories are told not in ink, but in the sucking mire and the chilling mist that clings to your skin like a shroud. You feel it now, the cold seeping through your leather boots, the damp air tasting of peat and decay. You press a hand against the rough bark of a hunched willow, its branches like skeletal fingers clawing at the gray sky. This is the truth. The mud, the mist, the silence. And you know they lied. You were there, but secrets, like roots, can survive in scorched earth. A modern archaeological survey, conducted in the 1980s and almost immediately hushed up, found what you already know. There was no lightning strike crater. Instead, at the foundations of the library, they found the residue of accelerants. The chemical signature was unmistakable, a dark truth preserved in the clay. Medieval Greek fire, a fiercely guarded military weapon, was used to guarantee the library's absolute destruction. The conspiracy was real. The murder of memory was planned. They were so thorough, so brutally efficient. The truth, the one whispered only in the deepest shadows of the Pharaoh's network, is a form of social engineering so brilliant, it's almost invisible. You feel it in your bones, the cold logic of it. Your village is tight-knit, a web of cousins and kin that has existed for 100 years. You trust each other. You protect each other. When the Lord's taxes are too high, you hide grain together. When his men are too cruel, you share warnings that travel faster than a horse can run. You are a single, stubborn fist. They won't know about her, the Pharaoh, the woman who taught you to listen. Your skin prickles. You close your eyes and focus, letting the priest's voice fade into a meaningless hum. The choir's voices become a map. The long note, arrival. The stumbling rhythm, from the west. The slight rise in pitch on the final syllable, tonight. Tonight. The tax collector arrives from the west. Your breath catches in your throat, a dry, rasping sound. You press your fingernails into the splintered wood of the pew in front of you, the rough texture grounding you. He places the chalice down with a soft click that echoes in the sudden silence. He feels nothing, no fire in his gut, no dagger in his back. The feast continues, but then a flicker. The candlelight at the edge of his vision seems to bend, to dance with menacing, elongated shadows. He blinks. It's gone, a trick of the eye. But the seed is planted. The whispers of his guests, the normal drone of a banquet, begin to change their texture. They sound sharper, pointed. She hums a strange, lilting song while she works, a melody with no words you can decipher, but your bones seem to understand its meaning. You can hear the faint, dry scrape of her fingernail against a dried leaf, an ASMR trigger across 7 centuries. That sound is a piece of the conspiracy. The song is a mnemonic key. The herbal remedy is a fragment of a lost pharmacopoeia. This is how they won, not with swords, but with lullabies. Not with war, but with weddings. The chronicles, the ones written in fine ink by men you'll never meet, will say she burned. They will paint a glorious, righteous picture. A public pyre in the market square of Norwich, the flames licking at a defiant witch, the crowd roaring as the last ember of rebellion is finally snuffed out. This is the story they need you to believe. This is the victor's ink, and it stains everything it touches. They are salting the earth of history itself. It is the ultimate act of censorship, an impulse that echoes through the centuries. It's the same desperate need for control that drives modern regimes to bomb museums, to bulldoze cultural heritage sites, to erase a people's past in order to control their future. They believe that if the record is gone, the event never happened. If the story is ash, the hero never lived. The official story will be sealed by the church, endorsed by the crown, and taught as fact for the next 800 years. You are the future of your clan, and you've just been traded for 3 pigs and the Lord's favor. This isn't about love. You know that. This isn't even about survival. This is about power. And 99% of the people in your world will live and die without ever understanding the true, chilling purpose of this transaction. They believe the marriage laws are about morality, about ensuring legitimate heirs and pleasing the church. That is the story they are told. It's wrong. Beautifully, intentionally wrong. This is the secret language. What the history books will never record. 99% of people believe the church controlled every word, every thought, every song. They believe the written word was the only power. They are wrong. This is a truth carried on the air, a ghost in the machine, a code. Linguists centuries from now will find traces of it, analyzing folk music and discovering what they call melodic markers. Notes and rhythms that serve no musical purpose, but correlate with documented famines, revolts, and raids. They won't know the full story. Power isn't broken with a sword. It's unraveled, thread by thread, from the inside of a man's own mind. You are here, in the great hall, the air thick with the smoke of 100 tallow candles and the sweat of nervous bodies. Before you stands Bishop Renaud, a man whose piety is a mask for his cruelty, whose hands are soft from prayer, but stained by the suffering he inflicts. He lifts the silver chalice, its surface gleaming with reflected fire. The communion wine, the blood of Christ, swirls a deep holy red. He drinks, and nothing happens. They became bakers and weavers and wives to the very men whose fathers had hunted them. They integrated, they married, they had children, and they passed their inheritance down not as a grand conspiracy, but as something far more resilient. They called it family tradition. You can almost feel it, a memory that isn't yours. A mother is teaching her daughter how to read the clouds, not for rain, but for the moods of men. She teaches her which herbs quiet a fever, and which quiet a guilty tongue. And each one, through its placement in the church, through the direction the saint is facing, or the angle of the light at a specific time of day, it points. It points toward the next church, the next town, the next window with the same hidden scar. It creates a secret pilgrimage route, a scavenger hunt laid by the dead, a path of ghosts leading across England. The real question, the one that should keep you awake tonight, isn't just who left these symbols. It's what in God's name lay at the end of their map. The biography of the peasant woman they called the Pharaoh, the leader who united the dispossessed and outmaneuvered a king, a woman who proved that power did not only flow from God through a crown, but could rise from the mud with the people. They needed her to be a whisper, a ghost story told around a dwindling fire. They could not allow her to be a documented, political reality. What they don't want you to know is that they didn't just burn a woman at the stake years ago. Tonight, they are burning the very memory of her. He lives in Oakhaven. Oakhaven, the name is a stranger on your tongue, a place 2 days' walk away, beyond the river, beyond the woods you know like the lines on your own hand. You are 14 years old. You know how to read the clouds for rain, how to find the 7 herbs that quiet a fever, and which mushrooms will grant you visions, and which will grant you death. You are a keeper of the stories your grandmother told you, the secret histories of your people that are never written down. His Latin is a wall, built to keep you out, to remind you that God's words are not for you, only His rules are. But you aren't listening to Him. You are listening to the choir. They are your people, farmers, weavers, blacksmiths. Their faces are grim, their voices unpracticed. To the priest, to the Lord's reeve standing by the heavy oak door, they are just peasants bleating out a hymn. But you hear it, a note in the Kyrie eleison, held just a breath too long, a subtle shift in rhythm, a cadence that stumbles where it should flow. They could open the mind to heavens and hells of your own making, and in a world ruled by faith, you have to wonder, what is more powerful than a medicine that can control what a person believes to be true? They didn't all die in the flood. The plan was never just to hide their knowledge, it was to hide its keepers. The history books, written by the victors, celebrate a final glorious battle, a complete annihilation. But you're not looking at a history book. You're looking at a spreadsheet of genetic code. It doesn't lie. It doesn't celebrate. It simply is. The legion survived. They walked out of the ashes, scattered, and vanished into the one place no one would ever think to look. Plain sight. You did not kill us all. It's a breadcrumb left for a future that might understand. A message in a bottle thrown into the ocean of time. But the secret that changes everything, the one buried even deeper than the symbol itself, is that this wasn't just a mark of defiance. It was a map. The historical data is undeniable. Each window with the mark is dated to the immediate aftermath of a major peasant rebellion or heretical purge. And 99% of the world will believe the lie, will accept the simple story of a storm and a spark. But you know, they are not burning a library. They are burning a single book. Housed within those consecrated walls, hidden in the scriptorium's deepest vault, was the only known copy of the Vita Puelle, the life of the girl. It is the story they can never allow to be told. They tell you marriage is a holy sacrament, a promise whispered before God. But you are learning that the most powerful words are never spoken in a church. They are spoken here, in the suffocating dark of your family's hut, where the only light is a single, sputtering tallow candle that smells of animal fat and despair. Your father's back is to you, a bowed silhouette against the rough-hewn timber of the wall. He hasn't looked at you since the reeve left. His name is Thomas, your father says, his voice a dry rasp, like stones grinding together. The song is a lie, and it's the only thing that can save you. The cold from the stone floor seeps through the worn leather of your shoes, a familiar ache that crawls up your bones. You're packed shoulder to shoulder on a rough-hewn bench, the air thick with the smell of damp wool, unwashed bodies, and the cloying sweetness of incense meant to mask the stench of reality. Up at the altar, a man in fine robes drones on in a language you don't understand. The pattern is timeless. Control the medicine, and you control the people. But there's a deeper secret, a truth whispered only when the fire has burned down to embers and the door is barred. The secret wasn't just in what the herbs could heal, but in what they could be used for next. As you gather the last of your bounty, your fingers close around a small mottled mushroom. You know its properties well. The whispers were true. Some plants didn't just cure pain. They could create belief. On the screen is a map glowing with data points. A splash of crimson concentrated around the valley of the sunken village. It's a ghost on a chart, an echo in the machine. A recent genetic survey conducted under a grant for studying population bottlenecks found something impossible. A specific, rare mitochondrial DNA marker passed down, unbreakable, from mother to daughter at a frequency 50 times higher than anywhere else in Europe. It's a beacon. The data, cold and emotionless, traces every single instance of this marker back to one woman. A single, unique ancestor, a survivor. You can feel the cold sweat on his brow, the metallic taste of fear in his mouth as he presses the forbidden shape into the metal, hiding it where only God or a devil might see it. This small symbol is a haunting parallel to the "Kilroy was here" graffiti left by soldiers in the wreckage of World War II. It's more than just an "I was here." It's a testament to survival, a symbol of the human spirit's resilience scrawled in the heart of enemy territory. It says, "You did not break me." You feel the heat on your face, a searing wave that dries the tears in your eyes before they can fall. You hear the sound, not the simple crackle of wood, but the deep, percussive groan of ancient stone giving way, the shriek of leaded glass windows exploding outward, and the terrible final hiss as the monastery's great roof collapses into the heart of the inferno. This is not a tragedy. This is an execution. You are watching a library die. 1,000 years of knowledge, of irreplaceable chronicles and illuminated manuscripts, are turning into black confetti on the wind. The heavy iron latch on your door begins to turn with a slow, final groan. Your official cause of death will be listed as fever. But as you stand there, clutching the torn pages in your fist, you know fever doesn't come with a key, and it doesn't carry a blade. How do you coordinate shipments, manage ledgers, and deliver warnings when no one can read and a single written message is a death sentence? One misplaced word, one misunderstood signal, and the entire web dissolves, leaving everyone in it hanging from a rope. But you also know the secret of the blighted rye, the ergot fungus that can poison a man's grain, sending his entire crop into rot and ruin. The ability to cure a lord's livestock or to subtly destroy his harvest gives you leverage. A terrifying, silent power that you can feel humming in the roots clutched in your fist. It's a medieval cover-up that mirrors a future you will never see. One where corporations patent the genetic codes of jungle plants, stealing indigenous wisdom and selling it back in a pill for 1,000 times its worth. The greatest lie ever told isn't written in a book. It's written in blood. The story you've been told of the rebellion, the flood, the righteous fire that purged the pharaohs from the world is a masterpiece of misdirection. 99% of people believe the story ended there, with a crushed legion and a bloodline returned to dust. But the most forbidden secret isn't what they knew, but who they became. You are in a sterile lab, Far from the mud and smoke of the 14th century, the only sound is the low hum of a computer fan, a sterile, synthetic wind. Every knock at the door could be the end. And yet, in the heart of the beast, inside the very cathedral funded by the men who are hunting him, he performs this one, final, silent act of rebellion. You can almost hear the soft, rhythmic tap, tap, tap of his hammer on the lead cane, an ASMR-quality sound of defiance echoing only in his own mind. The air is thick with something more than smoke. You can taste it, a bitter chemical tang on your tongue, the metallic taste of a secret being violently kept. The Abbey of St. Jude is being devoured by a fire that burns with an unnatural hunger, spitting green and yellow plumes into the black sky. They will call it an act of God, a stray lightning strike on a stormy night. But you are here, watching from the tree line, and you know God has nothing to do with this. Not the shuffling gait of a monk on his way to Vespers. This is the sound of a boot, deliberate, heavy. A shadow blots out the sliver of light beneath your door. They know. You look down at the diary, at the pages filled with your frantic, world-shattering truth. 2 pages, the most damning ones. Your fingers, clumsy with terror, find the edge of the vellum. With a sudden, violent wrench, you tear them from the binding. The ripping sound is deafening in the silence. It is the sound of your life ending. This secret network, this peer-to-peer system of survival, mirrors the ghost in the machine of our own modern world. A decentralized ledger of trust, operating far from the control of any king or government. The woman who runs it, the one they whisper of as the Pharaoh, isn't just a spiritual leader. She is the chief executive of a hidden corporation whose only product is hope. But this entire enterprise, this grand and silent rebellion, balances on the edge of a knife. Its survival depends on something that seems utterly impossible in an age of crushing illiteracy: perfect communication. They will analyze the ancient pollen trapped in the clay and find proof of complex medicinal mixtures. Yarrow for wounds, hawthorn for the heart, mugwort for a woman's pain. They will call it science. The church calls it heresy. This forbidden knowledge is your only power in a world that gives you none. The local lord, the one who sneers at you in the village square, came to you in secret last month when his prized horses were struck with a blight. You knew the cure was in the tannins of the oak, and you gave it freely. For a moment, there is nothing but the dense black of solid earth. Then an anomaly appears, a perfectly straight line, too straight for nature. It's a channel, no wider than a man, carved directly into the stone foundation of the lakebed itself. It leads away from the sunken village, away from the water, and disappears under the monolithic weight of the nearby hills. It wasn't a tomb, it was an exit. And the real secret isn't what lies at the bottom of the lake. It's where that impossible tunnel leads. Art historians have meticulously documented over 50 instances of this exact flaw in the great churches and cathedrals across England. 99% of these experts dismiss them. They label them as simple craftsman's marks, the medieval equivalent of a painter's signature, a quaint historical footnote. They are wrong. They are so profoundly, dangerously wrong. Imagine the craftsman. Imagine the terror. The Pharaoh system, his secret brotherhood, has just been revealed. The hunt is on, and it is not a hunt for heretics. It is a genocide. His friends are being burned. His family is being watched. He had silenced the past, but in doing so, he had blinded himself to the future. He would need a new way to see what was coming. A new kind of magic, but darker one. The logistics, the network, the sheer terrifying intelligence of it all. You write of the Pharaoh, of the shadow network that moves through the land like water, unseen until it has already passed. You write that you are a fool, a pawn in a game you never knew you were playing. You are halfway through a sentence, trying to capture the look in her eye when she mentioned, scrape. Your head snaps up. The quill freezes, hovering over the vellum. A single drop of ink falling like a black tear. A sound from the hallway. But they never learned about the anti-tithe. This is the system that keeps you alive. For every 10 bushels of wheat you render to the Lord, for every chicken you give to the priest, a secret portion is funneled here, into the dark. It fills a hidden granary, a shared insurance policy against the famines that God or the king sends your way. It is a war chest. It is medieval mutual aid, an act of community so profound, it is branded as theft, a sin so dangerous, it is punished by fire. It could have saved the cooper's son last winter, but the priest forbade it, offering prayers instead. The boy is in the ground now. The prayers did nothing. This is the secret language, passed down not in books that can be burned, but in a quiet, oral tradition. A language of leaves and roots, of poultices and tinctures. Centuries from now, archaeologists will scrape the residue from cooking pots found in the buried ruins of communities like yours. Village is a time capsule, yes, but it's an empty one. They didn't go down with their ship. They sank it and slipped away in the chaos. And that's when you see it. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic drum in the quiet of the tent. The sonar operator, thinking the survey is complete, begins to zoom out. Wait, you whisper, your voice hoarse. Go back, to the north wall. Keep scanning past it. The operator obliges, and the sonar pings again, probing the bedrock beyond the village's outer perimeter. A tiny, deliberate mistake in the design. A shepherd's crook and a flail, the ancient symbols of the Pharaoh, worked into the lead itself. It is a signature of the damned, a whisper from the grave. This was not a mistake. It was a message from a ghost, a craftsman from the network they tried to erase from history. A final, desperate cry into the future. We are still here. What they don't want you to know is that this is not an isolated incident. This is a conspiracy written in light and glass. It's the same dark strategy intelligence agencies use today, targeting doctors, journalists, and aid workers, people whose professions grant them trusted access to the very heart of the enemy. Every bonfire that consumed a midwife wasn't just burning a woman, it was burning a library of secrets. It was severing a vital link in the chain of rebellion. And as your network was hunted, tortured, and turned to ash, the Pharaoh who ordered the purge felt your web of eyes and ears going blind and deaf. The future, once so clear from the whispers you gathered, was becoming dark and uncertain. Or she? A fallen noble? A rogue scholar? The thought is a venomous snake in your mind. This secret is too big. It doesn't just question a doctrine, it invalidates the entire purpose of your world. Admitting your enemy is human and brilliant means admitting the church is neither divine nor omniscient. It is just one power among many, and it is afraid. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat of treason. The words pour from your quill now, a torrent of panic discovery. You must record it all. They are not the tithe for the church. This is the lifeblood of a second kingdom, a shadow economy that thrives in the dark like fungi on a rotten log. Historians of the future will be baffled, finding fine pottery from distant shires and carved tools from across the sea in the excavated remains of your poor peasant village. They won't understand, but you do. You live it. You risk the gallows for it. 99% of people will forever believe your life was trapped, a hopeless cycle of birth, toil, and death on a single plot of land. You are assembling an arsenal of remedies the church is desperately trying to monopolize, repackage in Latin, and sell back to the desperate. 99% of people will never learn that the organized guilds of Erbwinnen, the grandmothers, mothers, and daughters who met in secret clearings like this, possessed a botanical knowledge so sophisticated it was a direct threat. They believe your cures are demonic whispers. They don't know or refuse to admit that the pliable bark of the willow tree you're stripping contains the very essence that can break a fever, the same salicylic acid that future centuries will call aspirin. The sonar is so precise it can map individual stones. It can see the outlines of hearths and doorways. It paints a perfect, sterile picture of a lost world. But in all that detail, in all those silent, flooded homes, there are no bodies, no skeletons huddled in corners, no mass grave at the center. The historical accounts of their enemies speak of a final siege, of cornering them at this very marsh, and then silence. The hunters assumed the swamp had claimed their prey. They let a legend of divine wrath do their work for them, hiding their failure. It tells the official story. A golden-haired saint, his face serene, drives a spear through the throat of a snarling emerald-scaled dragon. It is a story of good triumphing over evil, of order crushing chaos, of the church victorious. It is the story they want you to believe, but you know the truth. You look closer. Your eyes trace the intricate web of dark lead that holds the story together, the skeleton beneath the beautiful skin. And there, tucked into the bottom right corner, almost swallowed by the shadows of the dragon's tail, you see it. It's a flaw. And power, when held by the powerless, is the most dangerous thing in the world. This is the secret the history books never tell you. They speak of witch trials as religious hysteria, a madness that swept through Europe. But look closer at the data. A shockingly disproportionate number of the accused, the burned, the drowned, were midwives. This was not a hunt for servants of the devil. It was a calculated, systematic extermination of an intelligence network. They weren't being silenced for incantations and spells. They were being silenced for what they knew. You are no longer crushing dissent. You are cleansing evil. You are not murdering a woman who understands agriculture. You are saving her soul from a demon who taught her forbidden arts. The lie is perfect, and you, Brother Thomas, have just discovered its rotten, hollow core. The candle gutters spitting wax. The flame dances, and for a second, you see her face in it. You see the thousands like her. The midwives with their herbal knowledge, the farmers with their almanacs, the merchants with their trade routes, all cogs in a machine you cannot comprehend. The Pharaoh, who is he? They tell you this in the cold stone churches, their voices echoing in the rafters as your stomach echoes with emptiness. It is the greatest, most secret lie they ever told. A lie designed to keep you powerless, to make you believe your suffering is a virtue. What they don't want you to know is that their real power, the power of the lords and bishops who live behind stone walls, isn't magic or divine right. It's economics. And tonight, you are committing economic heresy. The sacks in this cart aren't the Lord's grain. You reach for a sprig of comfrey, its hairy leaves brushing your skin like a coarse whisper. Behind you, through the tangled dark of the woods, a sound cuts through the night, the distant, iron chime of the monastery bell. It isn't a call to prayer. For you, it's a clock, counting down the minutes until you are discovered. It is the sound of the authority that watches, the power that wants your knowledge for itself, or wants it erased completely. You are not just picking weeds. You are curating a pharmacy. You trace the lines on the screen with a trembling finger, the plastic groaning under the pressure. Every house, every narrow defensible street is a testament to their genius and their desperation. They understood that if their knowledge of medicine, of astronomy, of metallurgy fell into the hands of the church or the feudal lords hunting them, it would be twisted, corrupted, or erased forever. So they enacted a scorched earth policy of the soul. They chose oblivion over desecration. But here is the fact that shatters everything, the detail that 99% of chroniclers missed. The most defiant message in English history isn't written in a book. It's burned into glass, and the secret that changed everything has been hidden in plain sight for 700 years. You are standing in a silence so old it feels heavy. A column of dust-filled sunlight cutting through the cold air of a cathedral. The air smells of stone, beeswax, and the faint sweet decay of centuries. Before you, a wall of light explodes in 1,000 colors. A stained glass window taller than 3 houses, a masterpiece of devotion and terror. You hear the gossip in the market, the complaints of the guards' wives, the pillow talk of nobles, repeated in moments of weakness. You are the nervous system of the rebellion, a web of information stretching across the land, hidden in plain sight. The trust given to you is absolute, an emotional bond forged in the crucible of life and death. When you save a woman's child from the clutches of a breech birth, you become more sacred to her than the priest who threatens her with hellfire. That bond is unbreakable. That bond is power. And in that moment, your entire world fractured. Your crusade, your life's work, wasn't a holy war against the forces of darkness. It was pest control, a desperate, brutal attempt to stamp out a rival power structure built not on faith, but on intellect. It's a tactic you can almost admire for its brutal efficiency, the same one you sense future empires will use. Dehumanize your enemy to justify your own atrocities. Don't admit you are fighting brilliant, resourceful people who threaten your authority. Label them heretics, witches, terrorists, fanatics. It absolves you of all sin. The cart makes no sound. Its wheels, wrapped in damp rags, press silently into the muddy track. The only other noise is your own heart, a frantic drum against your ribs. This is the hour of the wolf, the deep and starless dark, when honest folk are meant to be asleep, dreaming of heaven. But you are not honest, and heaven feels very far away. The church teaches that poverty is holy, a sacred state of being that brings you closer to God. What they don't want you to know is that the war on witches was never about magic. It was a war on knowledge, a war on women, and you are on the front lines. The moon is a sliver of bone in the black sky, offering no light to guide your hands. You don't need it. Your fingers know the terrain of this forest floor better than your own face. The dirt is cool and damp beneath your knees, packing itself under your nails. There's a sharp green smell of crushed stems, a perfume of chlorophyll and secrets. This wasn't an act of God. It was an act of engineering, an act of cultural self-immolation. Imagine having knowledge so precious, so dangerous to your enemies, that you would choose to flood your own world, to sink your own library, to sacrifice your very existence to protect it. It's the ultimate modern fear, played out in the Dark Ages. What do you do when your greatest creation is about to be stolen and weaponized? You don't just smash the hard drive. You sink the entire server farm to the bottom of a lake, and you realize, with a fresh wave of ice in your veins, that the church's own archives, the meticulous records of every woman ever accused of heresy, might just hold the key. They've been collecting the names of the dead when they should have been searching for the one who chooses the living. But you will remember everything. What they don't want you to know is that this is the real front line, not the muddy fields where men clash with swords, but the intimate, sacred spaces where life begins. 99% of people see a humble helper, a woman of low status, permitted into the sanctum of the high-born out of grim necessity. They see hands that catch life. They don't see the perfect intelligence agent. You travel between the smoky hovel of the poorest peasant and the silk-draped bed of the wealthiest baroness. You are invisible. It was a well-organized, intelligent populace that no longer needed to pray for rain because they had learned how to dig an irrigation ditch. There is a mind, you write, the letters growing sloppy. An organization. They learn our movements before we make them. She called their leader the Pharaoh, and a shiver traces its way down your spine as you remember the reverence in her voice. Not the fear a soul should have for a dark master, but the respect a soldier has for a brilliant general. She called him a master of shadows, a political genius, because a community that has lost its fear of God is a threat that cannot be allowed to exist. Your survival wasn't a miracle. It was a declaration of war. And the first soldiers of the Inquisition are already on the road. The emotional cost is immeasurable. The mystery, however, is what truly haunts this room. Where did they learn this? How did a hidden network of outcasts and peasants acquire surgical knowledge that rivaled, and in some cases completely surpassed, that of the university-trained physicians who served kings? The answer is a secret that could unravel everything you think you know about the Dark Ages. The structures are tight, coiled, built into a series of interlocking defensive rings around a massive central hall that has no cross, no steeple, no apse. It wasn't a house of God. It was a vault. This is the secret that history tried to drown. This was their final stronghold, their Avalon, and they buried it themselves. The geological surveys confirm it. There is no evidence in the sediment layers of a catastrophic earthquake, no sign of a natural flood. The data shows a controlled event. Sluice gates, now long rotted away, were opened. A deliberately diverted river was unleashed. The question that now echoes in the chilling silence of this cellar is far more terrifying. If they have been killing decoys, or at best, temporary holders of the title, then who was the last true pharaoh? And what ritual, what secret knowledge, what dark baptism anoints the next one? The hunt for a single woman is over. A new hunt has just begun. A hunt for a secret that has been hiding in plain sight for generations. A secret meeting, a shipment of steel from the south, her husband's nightly terrors, waking from dreams of betrayal by his own brother. You soothe her, wiping her brow with a cool, damp cloth. You murmur reassurances, but your ears are not instruments of comfort. They are weapons. Your mind is not a vessel for her pain. It is a ledger, recording every name, every date, every trembling confession. 3 people hear the truth whispered in the birthing chamber. The lady, delirious with pain, will forget. The newborn, crying its first breath, will never know. She spoke of a new method for crop rotation that yielded 20% more food, ending the winter famine that the priests had always blamed on God's wrath. Knowledge, practical, replicable, human knowledge. This is the heresy you uncovered. 99% of people, now and in the centuries to come, will believe the great enemy of the church was Satan. But as you sit here, the metallic taste of fear coating your tongue, you know the truth. The church's greatest fear wasn't a fallen angel. It's the feeling of staring into the face of God's judgment and surviving, not through prayer, but through your own forbidden ingenuity. Your faith is no longer in the echoing chants from the stone church, but in the rustle of herbs in your mask, the sharp scent of vinegar, the grim resolve in your neighbor's eyes. You have survived the plague, but now you realize the plague was only the first test. A new threat is gathering, one that wears a cross instead of a crown of sores. But a living peasant, healed by the hands of another peasant, was a symbol of a different kind of power. Proof that salvation, physical, tangible salvation, could exist outside the church's control. It's a chilling parallel to a modern sickness, where cheap, effective solutions are sometimes buried because they threaten the profits of multi-billion-dollar industries built on complex, patented cures. You look at her face, illuminated by the guttering flame of a tallow candle. The focus in her eyes is absolute. To save this man's life, she risks an agonizing death, to be called a witch and burned alive. They lied about the past. What else are they lying about now? Inside a cramped tent, the hum of a generator powers a laptop. On the screen is an image that should not exist. A sonar map, pieced together from thousands of soft, rhythmic pings sent echoing into a tomb of water and mud. There, beneath the silt, is the village. Not a jumble of collapsed huts, but a place of impossible order. The foundations are stone, perfectly preserved. But the layout, it's wrong. It's not English. A typical medieval village sprawls organically from its church like a dropped prayer bead. This is different. This is a weapon. It mirrors the way a modern, decentralized network operates, a force like Anonymous, which cannot be destroyed by arresting a single person, because it exists everywhere and nowhere at once. They can burn one pharaoh, and another, anointed in secret, simply rises to take her place, carrying the same authority, the same name, the same war. The old fear was of a witch, a mortal woman you could corner and kill. The new fear is of something eternal. The central mystery is no longer where is the pharaoh. The fire sputters, casting long dancing shadows that twist like demons on the tapestry-covered walls. Her husband, the Lord, is leagues away, planning a war he thinks is secret. But in this room, there are no secrets. Between agonizing breaths, she whispers to you. It's not just the pain talking. It's the desperate, primal need for an ally in the most vulnerable moment of her life. She trusts you. She has to. Your hands, stained with the herbs that ease her pain, are the only gentle things in her world right now. So the words tumble out, fragmented and raw. You had expected screams, blasphemies, a litany of pacts made with Satan under a black moon. The strappado hung waiting. The iron boot sat oiled and ready. But you never used them, because she didn't talk of sabbats and flying ointments. She talked of logistics. She explained how her village knew your patrol was coming, not through a demon's whisper, but because they watched the grain prices in the market 2 towns over. A sudden spike meant an army or a band of inquisitors was buying up supplies. He says your soul will curdle for this arrogance, but you look at the pit, then at your daughter, her face still smudged with soot, but her chest still rising and falling, and you know his words are hollow. This is the medieval equivalent of finding a hidden data set that contradicts the official narrative. Your village's survival is dangerous information. It suggests that man, not God, holds the keys. It's a truth so powerful it could crumble the stone foundations of the world. Every time you see a neighbor who should be dead, you feel a terrifying thrill. Archaeologists have unearthed skulls from this exact period, the bone around the surgical hole smooth and rounded with regrowth. Undeniable proof that the patient didn't just survive the operation, they lived for years afterward. This wasn't butchery, it was forbidden science, practiced in secret by those with nothing to lose. And that was precisely the problem. The church pushed miracle cures, holy relics, and prayer, not because they were effective, but because they reinforced absolute dependence on clerical authority. A dead peasant was a soul to be prayed for, at a price. The truth of the Pharaoh is that power has never been willingly given up. It has always been taken by those who were told they had none. And the final, haunting revelation? Their system never truly died. It fractured, went dormant, and was passed down in whispers, in recipes, in lullabies, in the very DNA of people who don't know the power they carry. The Legion is still here, sweeping. They buried your past to control your present. They lied about where you came from to control where you're going. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? 99% of people who stand by this lake believe the legend. They hear the story of a village so wicked, so full of pride and secrets, that God commanded the marsh to swallow it in a single moonless night. The truth, buried under 100 feet of cold water and silt, is far more terrifying. You stand at the water's edge. The wind coming off the surface is damp and smells of deep, cold earth. You can almost hear the ghosts in the reeds, the whispers of divine punishment. But you're not here for legends, you're here for the data. They were fighting a hidden, parallel institution. They were fighting an idea. It's a concept so foreign to your world of fealty and bloodlines that it feels like sorcery. Power, to you, is bound to a body, a king, a bishop, a man you can see and touch, and if necessary, kill. But this is like trying to stab the wind. This is a ghost that can't be exorcised because it isn't a single spirit, but an idea that possesses one host after another. The secret you are about to tell could get you killed. But here in this room, a different kind of death feels much closer. The air is thick with the iron tang of blood and the damp, cloying smell of fear. You are the midwife, and the noble lady gripping your hand, her knuckles white, her face a mask of sweat and terror, is about to give birth not only to an heir, but to the key that could unravel a kingdom. Her screams are a prayer to a God who seems to have abandoned this cold stone chamber. You dip the nib in ink, and the dark liquid bleeds onto the page like a confession. She is not a witch. Your hand trembles as you form the Latin script. There's no devil here. You can still feel the chill of the interrogation chamber, a cold that has nothing to do with the stone and everything to do with her eyes. They were not wild with demonic possession. They held no hellfire. They held the calm, calculating patience of a chess master watching a novice stumble into a trap set 10 moves ago. You can still feel the sting of the vinegar wash on your hands, raw and red. It feels like a sacrament. And the masks. 99% of people think of the beaked plague doctor mask as a thing of the distant future, an icon of a later century. They are wrong. You wear its crude ancestor now, a simple linen bag stuffed with thyme, mint, and camphor. The church calls it heresy, a prideful refusal to breathe the air God has sent as judgment. The priest says it's an attempt to build a Tower of Babel against heaven's wrath. The soft clink of metal against ceramic is the only sound besides the man's ragged breaths. This is the truth the church tried to burn. This is the knowledge they deemed demonic. She is about to perform a trepanation, drilling a hole into this man's skull to relieve the pressure that is killing him from the inside. What 99% of people will never know is that this often worked. When a cheap, effective medical treatment is suppressed in favor of a profitable, lifelong drug, that is the ghost of the church burning a witch's apothecary. When a powerful grassroots political movement is smeared by the media as dangerous, fringe, or a threat to stability, that is the echo of the Inquisitor branding organized peasants as a satanic cult. When history is rewritten to glorify conquerors and erase the stories of the conquered, they are still, right now, earning the library of the pharaohs. They built a prison for your mind, and its walls are made of sanitized history, watching from the shadows of places like this, places the king's men and their tidy chronicles cannot touch. The official story was meant to bring peace through an ending. But the truth, the one you feel in the marrow of your bones, leaves you with a question that is colder and sharper than any winter wind. They scream to the world that the monster was dead, but you know the truth. The silence from the fens is far more terrifying than any scream could ever be, because it means the hunt isn't over. It has only just become invisible. A sacred office passed from one woman to the next in an unbroken, hidden line of succession. Suddenly, the resilience of their network makes a horrifying kind of sense. You remember the reports. 3 months ago, Lord Valerius captured a woman they claimed was the Pharaoh in the north. He had her burned in the town square, a great public spectacle. The rebellion should have shattered. Instead, 2 weeks later, 3 of his supply convoys were ambushed and annihilated in the south. The attack coordinated with a precision that bespoke a single, brilliant mind. They weren't fighting a rebellion. Now it must learn to fight back, to turn the very institution they use as a weapon into a dagger of their own. They are sending you away to be silenced, but you will not be a dead end. You will be a new beginning. What they don't want you to know is that your faith is a lie. The official record will remember you, Brother Thomas, as a righteous, if brutal, defender of God. But here, in the suffocating silence of your stone cell, with a single candle casting your shadow long and monstrous against the wall, you are committing the ultimate heresy. You are writing the truth. The sharp, rhythmic scratch, scratch, scratch of your quill on the vellum is a sound of pure terror. A tiny rebellion against an empire of silence. What they don't want you to know is that your life is owed not to God, but to the Pharaoh. You don't know his real name, only that his network moves in shadows, bringing forbidden knowledge. While the priest was preaching penance, the Pharaoh's messengers brought rules. Brutal, effective, non-religious rules. You remember them being read aloud, a hushed gathering in the woods, away from the church bells. Isolate the sick. No exceptions. Burn their bedding. Handle the dead with cloths soaked in vinegar. A man lies on a rough-hewn table, his breathing shallow, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and hope. Above him, a woman moves with a stillness that is both terrifying and divine. She is one of the Pharaoh's disciples, a name whispered in terrified reverence, a ghost in the official story of history. Her tools are not the rusty, uncleaned instruments of your nightmares. You watch as she lifts them from a bubbling pot. The sharp scent of boiled wine, a primitive antiseptic, cutting through the air. They had to create the myth of the ignorant, superstitious peasant to make you, centuries later, believe that you need powerful institutions to save you from your own stupidity. The story of the Pharaoh network was replaced with the sanitized tale of Joan of Arc, a powerful woman, yes, but one whose power was explicitly sanctioned by God, making her an acceptable anomaly, not a systemic threat you could join. This is the secret that underpins our world. The medieval cover-up is the blueprint for modern control. They needed to crush the hope that Ilara represented, the shocking, terrifying idea that a common girl could command the loyalty of a legion and make the powerful tremble. So they gave the people a spectacle in their minds, a bonfire of the imagination to warm their hands on. But a lie leaves a vacuum, and in that empty space, something far more dangerous can grow. They think they ended a rebellion, but what if they only drove it underground? What if Ilara and the last of her followers are not defeated, but hidden, waiting? Every captured heretic whispers her name under torture. Every burned village is a testament to her influence. She is the charismatic leader, the singular serpent in the garden. They have sketches of her, descriptions, a dozen conflicting portraits of a single mortal woman. But this page, saved from the fire that was meant to erase it, tells you the truth they were hiding. This is the secret 99% of people, even the scholars who will one day write this history, will never understand. The Pharaoh isn't a person. It was never a person. It is a title, a role. They see you as a pawn, a piece to be moved across their board to break a network. They think they are sending a girl, but the Pharaoh's system taught you more than just stories and herbs. It taught you how to listen, how to watch, how to plant a seed of an idea in a new place. They mean for this marriage to be a chain, but every chain has two ends. The network has been wounded, its lines of communication targeted. They are scanning the faces of the choir. Someone heard the wrong note, and they understood. The sweet, sick smell of decay, a perfume of rot and spoiled earth, clings to your wool tunic and crawls into your mouth. It's a scent that never leaves you. The sound is what haunts you at night. Not the wailing, that has mostly stopped, but the wet, percussive thud of a body wrapped in a sheet hitting the pile below. You clench your jaw, the muscles tight, and taste the metallic tang of fear mixed with the sour residue of vinegar. It's the taste of survival. They buried this secret under layers of piety and fear. You think of medieval medicine and picture a butcher with a rusty saw. But the most effective surgeons were the ones they burned as heretics. Imagine you're here, in this damp stone cellar, where the air is thick with the metallic tang of blood and the earthy scent of poulticed herbs. You feel the cold seeping through the soles of your leather shoes, a persistent chill that the small fire in the corner cannot defeat. They built a parallel society, one based not on hoarded power, but on shared knowledge. And they were so successful, so dangerous to the ossified order of church and state, that the system had to invent the greatest lie in history to destroy them. The lie of the Dark Ages. They didn't just burn the witches, they burned the evidence of an epoch that was teeming with innovation and organized popular resistance. With every pyre, a pharmacy turned to ash. With every drowned woman, a library of agricultural knowledge sank to the bottom of a river. You can almost hear it, even now, the wet, tearing sound of a boot pulling free from the peat's hungry grip. That was the last sound you heard of her. Not screams, but the sound of escape. This is a truth so dangerous, it had to be buried under a lie. It's a strategy that future powers will perfect. Declare the mission accomplished, unfurl the banners of victory, and sell a comfortable story to a people who are desperate for the war to be over. For she is not one, but a legion. It changes everything, for she is not one, but a legion. This cold dread, metallic and sharp like the taste of blood, floods your mouth. The thing you need to know about the Inquisitor, the church, the nobility, and foreign powers have been bent towards a single purpose: to hunt and destroy one woman, the Witch Queen of the rebellion. They will call it economic displacement, pricing people out of their ancestral homes to shatter their social networks. The goal is always the same: fracture the powerful blocks. Turn a united front into a collection of isolated, frightened strangers. You look at your father's slumped shoulders. He is not your enemy. He is a prisoner, just like you. The Lord's command was not a request. To refuse would mean eviction, starvation, or a noose. But as the fear settles, something else begins to burn in its place: a cold, hard fury. For a moment, there is only the sound of 100 people breathing, the rustle of coarse fabric, a baby's cry from the back. The message has been delivered. The network is alive. Then, a new sound shatters the silence. It's not the priest. It's the heavy, metallic scrape of a boot on stone near the main door. A sharp, commanding voice cuts through the sacred quiet, not in Latin, but in your own tongue. No one leaves. The Reeve is walking forward, his hand on the hilt of his sword. His eyes aren't on the priest. They told you the Black Death was God's indiscriminate wrath, a divine broom sweeping clean the sinful and the pious alike. That's the lie they nail to the church door. The real secret is buried 6 feet down, beneath the bones, and the forensic data from these pits reveals a shocking anomaly the history books ignore. Survival rates in your village, and others like it, are up to 40% higher than in the loyalist towns that prayed while they perished. You are standing at the edge of the pit. It's the cold dread of a lord realizing his peasants aren't just starving, they're organizing. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. So who was the girl who became a pharaoh? The mind-blowing truth is that she was everyone and no one. The pharaoh was never a person. It was a promise whispered in the dark, a promise that knowledge is power and that unity can shatter oppression. Imagine a web of light in an age of shadows, a decentralized, matriarchal network of scientists, doctors, economists, and spies. Their laboratories were not in castles, but in kitchens. Their libraries were not bound in leather, but in the memories of women who passed down herbal cures and engineering secrets. These are men who record the cost of a single horseshoe, who tax the egg from the poorest hen, who document every hanging, every flogging, every fine. Their ledgers are their true scripture, and in the meticulous death rolls of Norwich, in the carefully tallied expense reports of the Crown, there is a deafening silence. There is no entry for the wood to build a pyre, no fee for an executioner, no record of a witch named Alara meeting her end. Her body was never found because it was never taken. Welcome to the Middle Ages. The torch in your other hand sputters, casting your shadow, a monstrous giant, against the weeping stone walls. Most of the script on the page has been devoured by fire and time, erased from memory. But a single line, written in a clear, defiant ink, remains untouched by the flames. You lean closer, the heat of the torch kissing your face, and you trace the Latin letters, your fingernails scraping against the brittle surface with a sound like autumn leaves skittering across a grave. By forcing the women, the primary keepers of oral tradition, the weavers of community, the librarians of forbidden knowledge, to move, they sever the lines of communication. They isolate the knowledge. A story that isn't told for a generation is a story that dies. A healing poultice that isn't taught is lost forever. This is how they dilute power. It's the same dark art that echoes into the future, a tactic of control that never goes away. Centuries from now, they will call it gerrymandering, redrawing maps to break up communities and silence their votes. A story is told that the Pharaoh's network started after her village was decimated by a lord's whim, a tax enforced with fire and steel. They say she walked out of the ashes, realizing that their songs of sorrow could be forged into something else. She didn't just preserve the old pagan melodies the church was trying to stamp out. She embedded a new, secret language within the church's own hymns, a language of survival. The final note of the hymn hangs in the air, echoing off the stone arches. Bishop Renault's authority doesn't crumble from a dagger. It evaporates in the fog of his own paranoia. He becomes erratic, his sermons turning into rambling accusations against imagined enemies in his own flock. The network they called the Pharaohs didn't overthrow him. They simply handed him the shovel and let him dig his own grave. But this raises a question so chilling it freezes the blood. If you perfect a weapon that spreads through whispers and doubt, how do you ensure your own people are immune? It's the story of a girl who could command harvests with forbidden knowledge of the soil, who could face the plague not with prayers, but with remedies exchanged in moonlit clearings. A girl who became a pharaoh to the dispossessed, whose symbol, a simple crossed shepherd's crook and flail, is being carved into the foundation stones of rebel churches. The nobles call her a witch. The bishops call her a phantom. But you can feel the shift. You can taste the change in the air, sharp and metallic, like blood. But by hiding their truth in the safest vault on earth, the human family, they may have won the long, silent peace. The bloodline is alive. The keepers are in place. But the secret they have guarded for 700 years, the knowledge that once threatened to topple empires, is a lock. And the data shows us the key is about to be turned. It swallowed the world. It muffled the shouts, turned men into ghosts, and erased the line between land and water. When it thinned, she was gone, vanished, not captured, not slain, just gone. As if the fens themselves, this ancient, unconquerable land, had opened its arms and taken her home. What they don't want you to know, the secret that 99% of people who read their triumphant histories will never even question, is that their victory is a ghost, a fabrication built on a foundation of fear. You know their regime. You know its obsessive, grinding bureaucracy. The secret that could topple a kingdom wasn't kept in a chest of gold or whispered in a royal bedchamber. You find it in the lung-choking dark of a monastery's flooded cellar, held in your trembling hands. It is a single sheet of vellum, stiff and curled, its edges blackened to charcoal. It smells of ancient smoke, of fear turned to ash. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe that a sick horse can curse a whole village. Your world is held together by the iron will of your king and the absolute word of God. A daughter from a rebellious family in the north is married to a man from a loyalist village in the south. A keeper of herbal knowledge from the woods is sent to a husband in the treeless fens. It's a slow, insidious cultural genocide. You clench your fists, your fingernails digging into your palms, the sharp pain, a small, welcome distraction. You can almost hear the scrape of the quill as the reeve made his notes, mapping out the bonds of family and loyalty in your community. They knew exactly what they were doing. The man beside you, a cooper with calloused hands, shifts his weight. His eyes are closed, but his jaw is set. He heard it too. The woman across the aisle, whose son is sick with the lung fever, subtly touches her throat. She is part of the warning system, ready to pass the message to the healer. The realization is a cold dread mixed with exhilarating power. You are plotting treason right in God's house, right in front of your oppressor. The song is a shield and a sword. A controlled dose of ergot, a fungus on rye, or a tincture of belladonna doesn't kill. It corrodes reality. It's a poison for the soul. Archaeologists analyzing residue in recovered chalices from churches that saw a miraculous change in leadership have found the undeniable chemical signatures. This wasn't murder. It was something far more terrifying. This is the medieval version of modern psychological warfare. You don't need to fire a single arrow if you can make a population distrust its own leaders, if you can make a leader distrust his own mind. They tell you 99% of people like you are ignorant, brutish, born to serve and die in the mud. A story carefully crafted to keep you on your knees. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. But what they don't want you to know is that something else is moving in the shadows. A whisper passes from the confessional to the market stall, a secret that travels faster than any royal decree. It's not about a secret society meeting in the shadows. It's about the descendants of this powerful, erased line still walking among us, completely unaware of the legacy pumping through their own veins. And here is the modern parallel that should keep you awake tonight. What forgotten histories are locked away in your own DNA? What suppressed potential, what lost knowledge is buried in the nonsensical stories your grandparents told you? The pharaohs lost the war, a war of fire and steel. You saw the king's men, their chainmail dulled by the fog, their horses struggling through the treacherous marshland they called the Great Wet. They cornered her, Ilara, the girl they spat on with the name Pharaoh. They had her trapped against the black water of Amir, her followers a ragged, desperate handful against a wall of steel and war horses. You watched from the reeds, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. You heard the commander shout, the triumphant cry that victory was at hand. And then the mist, thick and sudden as a divine curse, rolled in. They thought they had incinerated every word, every letter, every trace of the girl who defied them. They were wrong. In the chaos of the collapse, a single vellum page, scorched at the edges, but with its ink still miraculously legible, was blown clear of the inferno. It landed in the mud of a nearby ditch, a lone survivor of a massacre, waiting patiently in the dark for someone to find it. The authorities want to break that fist, finger by finger. What they don't want you to know is that they have a weapon more effective than any sword: you. Recently discovered parish records, when laid over the grim accounting of the Lord's tax ledgers, reveal a horrifying pattern. In regions with the most dissent, the most unrest, there is a sudden, dramatic spike in what the ledgers call relocations. But these aren't men being moved for work. They are women being moved for marriage. The scrape is barely audible, but in the cathedral of your mind, it's a scream. This is how modern activists use coded memes and encrypted channels to organize under the unblinking eye of state surveillance. But here, the technology is older. It's the human voice. The Pharaoh didn't need wires or screens. She turned every church in the territory into a secret communications hub. She weaponized piety. She took their holiest music, the very tool they used to demand obedience, and turned it into a call for rebellion. You are sitting in a conspiracy, breathing it in, singing it out. He can't make out the words, and that, you see, is the genius of the attack. His own mind, steeped in guilt and arrogance, begins to write the script. Did you see his hand tremble? The Lord knows his sins. He is not fit. The metallic taste of fear, coppery and foul, washes over his tongue, far stronger than the wine ever was. This is the secret they buried under the label of demonic possession. What 99% of people will never know is that the so-called potions of village witches were a sophisticated science. The church buried her name for 800 years, scraping it from stone and burning it from parchment. They almost succeeded, but in the margins of a forgotten ledger, a single terrified monk risked his soul to write 2 words: Puella Egyptiaca, the Egyptian girl. The air in your hovel is thick with the smell of damp earth and wood smoke. Your breath clouds in the frigid dark. Outside, the world is a tapestry of fear and faith, stitched together by the church and the crown.